The Dell Visor is the very first Windows mixed reality headset on the market. It's available now in a bundle for $450 with the controllers and integral tracking technology. Hi, I'm James Bruce. You're watching MakeUseOf.com reviews. First up, I think we need to address the point of what is mixed reality, because there seems to be an awful lot of misunderstanding around this. Traditionally, mixed reality has meant something along the lines of mixing the real world into the virtual world. More recently, videos that are taken with someone doing virtual reality on a green screen such that they can then overlay the virtual world to that green screen and make it look like they're actually in the virtual world. It gives a much better sense of what it's actually like to use virtual reality. Unfortunately, Microsoft has completely subverted the term into a marketing gimmick, despite the fact that their first wave of mixed reality headsets are actually just virtual reality. In fact, they're even less mixed reality than the HTC Vive, which has a front camera and you can turn on to see the real world while you're using VR. The mixed reality headsets can't even do that. Now, that's not to say that in the future they won't bring out actual mixed reality or augmented reality devices. We already know they have the HoloLens, for instance, which does overlay elements onto your real world environment. But right now, that's not the case. So onto the Visor. On this device, the screen displays 1440 by 1440 pixels to each eye, and that's marginally higher than the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive. However, in practice, it doesn't really feel that much higher. It is a very marginal increase. If anything, the field of view actually feels a little bit worse. It's a lot smaller. There's more of a mask effect. And to me, the field of view rather than resolution is what's more important for immersion. The so-called screen door effect is in fact still there. I'd like to say it's a little bit less, but to be honest, I didn't notice that much of a difference. Despite using LCD panels rather than OLED, it does seem bright enough. It's not as bright as the Vive, but sometimes the Vive can actually feel a little bit too bright. So this, it felt fine. Light leakage around the nose is a real problem with this, at least on my face. But in terms of overall comfort, the rigid headband in the style of the PlayStation VR one really helps. The headset itself flips upwards, and for some people this is quite important because it allows you a quick exit from VR. It doesn't feel like you're completely trapped within a VR world, so you can lift it up and quickly talk to anyone that you need to. In my case, it didn't actually work that well. I couldn't lift it up because of my glasses, but other than that, my glasses fit in and it's very comfortable. The headband means that the headset itself is not pushing against your face at all. The weight is all being put onto the top of your head. So very comfortable then. The one downside to having a very rigid headband like this is that, at least with the headphones I tried, because it doesn't have built-in headphones, so I added my own little pair of headphones and they don't actually fit onto the headset. It's quite wide and they sort of sit on there and they don't actually reach my ears. It's all a bit awkward, and for gaming it's not that great. I guess if you had some different headphones they might work better. I don't have that many to test with, but for mine it didn't work. Also worth noting is that there is no physical Ipd adjustment. That's the distance between the lenses. Now, for most people who have a standard Ipd of 63, 64 millimeters, it's probably not going to matter. But if you are on the extreme end, there are software adjustments, but that's not as good as physical hardware adjustments for the lenses. You may find it's very awkward to use and doesn't ever quite match your vision. However, as with all VR headsets, your experience is going to vary, and before you purchase, you absolutely should try one on first. It really doesn't suit your glasses. There's a massive nose gap, your eyes have the wrong IPD. These are all really important things that you should try first. On the front of the headset, you'll find two infrared cameras, and these are what maps your room and provides the tracking capabilities. Every time you put on the headset, you'll be asked to look around a bit until it identifies where you are within the room. We'll talk more about the tracking in a moment, but there's a 3-meter cable attached to the headset, which is really very short. Now, I did try to extend it using both some standard USB HDMI extension cables as well as the Vive link box just to get a little bit more, but it didn't work. It refused to accept the connection, so I've been unable to test it on a really large scale. The 3-meter cable is very restrictive, and you'll probably find you need to turn your computer around rather than run the cable to the back because you're losing about half a meter there. Obviously, if you were using this with a laptop, that wouldn't be a problem. The controllers are supposedly manufactured by Dell, but they're identical to every other mixed reality headset that's being released. So I assume they're all following a reference design, just like the headset itself, to be honest. Now they're okay, but they're not great. You get both a trackpad and a thumbstick, as well as grip, trigger, and 2 additional buttons, a Windows button and a menu button. The basic design is obviously more similar to Oculus Touch than it is the Vive wands. However, there's no capacitive sensing on any of the buttons, so it doesn't know when you're touching them rather than pressing them, like the Oculus Rift does. They're also significantly less comfortable than the Oculus Touch controllers are. These are quite blocky, and they're not great. They're a bit functional, but nothing more really. They're exactly like something I would expect Microsoft to design. They have a ring of tracking LEDs around the front, again, just like the Oculus Touch, but more on that in a moment. The only issue I had using these and setting these up was that they require Bluetooth to connect to your computer. And if you're using a desktop PC, you may not actually have a Bluetooth controller. On a laptop, you almost certainly do have one built in, but not on a desktop. Luckily, I had a small USB Bluetooth dongle lying around, but if I didn't and I had to order one off Amazon, that would be quite frustrating to have not included that $3 adapter in the box. The HTC Vive controllers, for instance, also use Bluetooth to communicate. However, the headset itself, in that case, includes a Bluetooth controller, so they connect via the headset and then through the USB cable to the computer. The fact that it doesn't do it with this headset makes the whole experience feel a little bit disjointed, like the controller and the headsets were kind of made by different companies almost. So in order to track your position in VR, the Dell Visor and other mixed reality headsets don't require external cameras or base stations to be set up in the corner of the room. Instead, they use the cameras on the front of the headset itself to look at how your environment changes and map that into your virtual world. Now this system is called SLAM, or Simultaneous Localization and Mapping, and it's the same sort of system they used in the HoloLens. It means that the cameras on the front of the headset are constantly looking for features in your environment, as well as the controllers themselves. Now there's a couple of implications of this system, the first of which is that it's a lot easier to set up. It essentially involves looking around your room and that's it. You don't need to fix base stations in the corner. You don't need to fiddle around with USB extension cables for your cameras. You don't need to angle the sensors up and down until they're just about right. It just works. The other implication is that it can only track your controllers when they're in the field of view of the cameras on the headset. In theory, it also means it's more expandable. The reason why we can't have warehouse scale tracking with Oculus or Vive, for instance, is that they work off physical properties of light. The Oculus Rift, the cameras need to be able to see the infrared LEDs on the headset. So the further you get away from those sensors, the more difficult it is to track. Now with this system, in theory, you would be able to look around and map a very large area and then just walk around and have it dynamically update. In practice, however, the 3-meter cable is severely limiting. I can't get that extended, so I can't really tell you how big of a scale it can do. Right now, it's limited by the cable. In the coming weeks, I hope to see people trying this out by putting it onto a laptop and then wearing the laptop in a backpack. Hopefully we should be able to see people testing the tracking in that case on a much larger scale. Secondly, it has serious implications for tracking of the controllers. Essentially, it can only track what it can see. So if your controllers aren't in the field of view of the headset, like here, you lose tracking. If you watch the demos that Microsoft has been putting out, you'll see that they're very careful to keep the controllers within view of the headset at all times. Now, the truth is that for 95% of your interactions in the Windows mixed reality environment, at least, that's really not going to be a problem at all. Most of what you do will be with your hands out in front of you, and it can see really well down to, it has a good field of view. However, for things like gaming and especially first-person shooters, there are a lot of times when you reach outside of your field of view. Perhaps you're keeping an eye on an enemy while you look down to grab a gun. Perhaps you're trying to pick something up off your backpack. With one of these headsets, that isn't going to work as well. You're going to have to look down, then perform the action, then look back. This could also have implications in social VR, where if, for instance, you're waving at someone and then you look away, it'll lose tracking, you'll stop waving. It seems like a minor point, but all of these interactions are going to add up, and I found them to be a little bit frustrating. I can't tell you how it affected my performance in a first-person shooter, because there are still no Steam VR games I can test this with. However, just within the Windows mixed reality environment, I found it was very easy to break the tracking. Now, game designers who aim for cross-platform play will have ideas and ways of working around this. For instance, when you're picking up an item, a number of games don't need you to actually touch the item. You can just have your hand in the general area, press the button, and it'll snap to it. In fact, my favorite game, Rec Room, works in this way. Other games, more serious, realistic shooters like Onward, will definitely be a problem. You won't be able to accurately reach around and grab something from the side of your body. So there are benefits and drawbacks to this kind of tracking system. For most people, the benefits will seriously outweigh the drawbacks. But serious gamers who are only looking for gaming within VR may still want to look elsewhere with more robust systems that can track you everywhere throughout your room. So let's talk about content now. This is where mixed reality really feels crippled at launch. Simply put, we were promised Steam VR support and it's still not there. You need to apply for the developer preview in order to gain access to it. Microsoft has said that'll be available by the holiday season, but take that with a grain of salt, we really don't know. Until that happens, what you do have access to is 20,000 universal Windows apps. Yay! Now that's not 20,000 universal VR Windows apps, that's 20,000 apps in total on the Windows App Store. Now Microsoft is keen to tell you that the same apps that you use on your Xbox and your tablet and your phone will now work in the Windows mixed reality environment. But no one uses Windows Universal apps on an Xbox or a tablet or a phone, so I don't really see why they would use them in the mixed reality environment either. Right now, there's not that much there that's compelling, especially in the way of gaming. And to be honest, it's been a bit of a painful experience trying to review this device because there isn't anything there to review it with. So the first thing you'll experience in the Dell Visor is the Windows Home environment. It's a nice and sparse beach house sort of thing with a virtual cinema in the basement and 3D widgets called holograms that you can place anywhere around your home and scale them up or down. Some have little animations associated with them. I put this nice stone wall in the corner of my lobby along with a hanging plant, and then I said what the heck and put a supersized hamburger in the middle of the hallway. It's fun for about 3 minutes and then the gimmick wears off. You can also pin universal apps to any wall or just free float them in space. Things like Skype or the Edge browser. Yay. One positive thing I can say about the Windows Home environment is how they've managed to make it accessible if you only have a keyboard and mouse. The mouse cursor will map to any flat surface in front of you, such as a universal app on the wall or on the floor if you're looking at that, and then you can right-click to navigate around. It was surprisingly intuitive, and it really goes to highlight the fact that this was probably designed around the idea of interacting with traditional applications rather than what we've come to expect from VR, which is full motion controls. So that's cool if you genuinely are planning to pin some Excel spreadsheets onto your virtual wall. In terms of full VR games at launch, well, you don't even have Minecraft, which again was promised. If you try to launch the Minecraft Windows 10 edition, you'll find it runs entirely flat, just as any other universal app, and you play it with the mouse and keyboard just like always. So that's a bit disappointing. Even on the Rift and HTC Vive, we've had 2 different versions of Minecraft that support VR completely for about a year now, so it's very disappointing that Microsoft can't even make that work with their own headsets. So how about that amazing VR Halo experience that they promised? Well, it turns out it's a 2D shooting gallery, where 2D targets appear on a virtual wall. It's over in 5 minutes and it's not really worth the disk space or the download. I wish I was kidding, but if this is in any way indicative of what Microsoft plans to offer in VR, I'm kind of sad they even bothered to enter the market because it's just going to poison the well for the rest of us. People are going to look at it and say, oh, is this what VR has to offer? No, no it isn't. We have much, much better. Is it too early to judge the content? Well, maybe, but what's a reviewer supposed to do? That's what they've launched with, that's what they've given us. There's really no point of these headsets existing right now without Steam VR gaming support. There's a couple of good games right there on the Windows Store, but those I already own on Steam VR. I'm not going to buy them again. They're good games, but they're things we've played before. They're not original. I mean, except for that exclusive VR Halo experience, I guess. And while the concept of a 3D Windows environment that you can walk through is sounds exciting. In reality, it feels just like a tech demo. There's no real world use case for this right now. I'm not going to pin an Excel spreadsheet to a virtual wall and then virtually walk over there in order to open a browser and do some virtual typing. That's just silly. I really don't think any of this makes any sense until we have proper augmented reality devices. When I can pin my Slack chat app over on that wall right over there and put some stock quotes over there, that's going to make sense. It will augment an existing workflow. But right now, this isn't it. This doesn't do that. This is a VR headset and it's not a very good one. I think once Windows Mixed Reality gets wider support, it's really worth revisiting these. Competing headsets is always a good thing. We've already seen the price of the Vive drop from $900 to $600 and the Oculus Rift is down to $400, including motion controllers. It's crazy. Competition is always a great thing, and if these can compete at a similar price point, that's great. The tracking is certainly a lot easier to set up, and in most of the use cases, most of the games, it really won't matter. Eventually, the Windows 10 mixed reality platform may become the platform of choice for all VR and AR, just like DirectX did pretty much for gaming. It's a step in the right direction, and you can see where they're headed with all this. But right now, the Windows home environment is completely pointless. And it's only once we get some Steam VR support that I think we can properly evaluate these devices. Right now, steer clear. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you found this review useful in some way. I will try to get in on the preview for Steam VR Access within the next week, and if I can, well then I'll be able to post an update on how that's working. In the meantime, click on the link in the description, head on over to MakeUseOf.com, where we will be giving this away in a competition. It lasts for about 2 weeks from the date at which this video is published, so please go over there and enter that competition so you can experience it for yourself and make your own mind up. Until next time, you've been watching MakeUseOf.com reviews.